If you're thinking about getting a pulse width modulator for your kayak trolling motor, how do you know you really get a real pulse width modulator given that all these things look the same? I'm going to show you. All these components look identical when you look at the pictures on eBay or Amazon or elsewhere. And in fact, you really need to read the instructions very carefully. So for example, look at these two versions of this exact same unit. So let's look at this 60 amp version. And if you clicked on this as the first choice, you would see that it clearly states it's a pulse width modulator. But if you happen to have clicked on the 60 amp first, but really wanted the 100 amp, and go click on it and did not read the description carefully because the picture stays the same, you'd be screwed. It's not a pulse width modulator. Be sure you take a quick look at the product description and verify that it has a pulse width modulation frequency. The higher the frequency, the better, because a high frequency means that you will not hear any hum. So depending on which one you clicked on to start with, you might accidentally assume that they were all the same and it was just a different amperage rating that made the difference, but it's not. And given the inaccurate descriptions that are endemic out there on the internet, how do you really know you've got a real pulse width modulator? At least on Amazon, if you determine that this is not what you wanted, you can return it easily. Well, thanks to the Fishing Hobby channel, and I'll link him up right here, he's an expert on these things, and he went through the details with me on how to test one of these things to determine if it's real. And it's really simple. And you can do it without destroying the PWM before you put it in your kayak. Let me show you what he explained to me. I've got the unit hooked up inside my box, and what the deal is that if there is no load on the pulse width modulator, it will read the 12 volts associated with the battery I have hooked up with it. So as I turn this up all the way to the top, you can see that it's reading about 13.27, but as I vary it down, the voltage stays the same. So even at 28 and 29%, it's still reading 12.99, essentially the full capacity of the battery. But as soon as I put a load on this, we'll see a difference. So I'll set my trolling motor on 5 forward speed, which is where I would normally have it. And now let's watch and see what the meter reads. Now, when I turn on the pulse width modulator, let me turn it all the way up to max. You see it's running at 13, and you can hear the hum of my trolling motor in the background. But now, if I reduce it to approximately 50%, you can see that it's reading 6.32. So it is modulating the voltage. Remember, these voltage meters only take an average, but it's pulsing at the 12 volts that's keeping my trolling motor going. So given the fact that the voltage varies as I change the load, tells me that this is truly a real pulse width modulator. So there you are. That's how you check. Thanks again to the Fishing Hobby channel for explaining this to a dumb old guy like me. Now I'm confident that I bought the real thing. And why do I have this extra one? Because I screwed it up and blew it out by hooking it up improperly. Avoid that. Make sure you're hooking the motor to the motor or the battery to the battery. Now I've got to throw this out. Anyway, that's how you test. Comments? Take care.